Today is a pretty special day. March 23rd is actually Atheist Day, and this day is all about normalizing and celebrating non-believers. Now, yes, we are atheists, and yes, we are live in the Free Thought Library right here in Austin, Texas, baby. Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Awesome! But let me tell you what the best part is. We are a community. And I am so thrilled that on this Atheist Day, I have a chance to let you know about a brand new nonprofit organization that is focused on connecting and supporting atheists, humanists, and secular people all throughout the South. I'm going to tell you about an awesome fundraiser that we have coming up next week and some really, really cool opportunities to connect with your people this year. But before we do any of that stuff, let's just get this show started. Show that beautiful audience again. That is right. Look at those people. They are gorgeous, and they are here today to celebrate non-belief in all its forms. I am so excited to be here because it is, in fact, March 23rd, 2025. That's Atheist Day. I'm your host, Secular Rarity, and I am joined by the wonderful, always amazing Holy Koolaid. What is up, Thomas?
Hey, it's fantastic to be here.
Yeah, you've just been stuck here for a few hours. We turned the cameras off, and everybody else got a chance to go walk around.
Yeah, I was wondering,
but
does the chain ever, do you take it off?
I don't think so, actually.
No,
you
I'm just
really
stuck
should have
here.
read that contract.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was weird.
I will see you guys next week and the next.
Every day we're going to be right back. No, we are live right here in Austin, Texas. If you have never been down to the Free Thought Library, you have absolutely got to do it. It is a wonderful, wonderful place for people to gather. And if you don't know about this, you guys, let me tell you something that's really cool. We get here, once a week. And we do these shows, and a lot of people think that's all that goes on, but it's not. Every single day, there is something going on in this area. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today a little bit, because we're here on Atheist Day. We're talking about all things atheism. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you some things, and we are going to talk about last week's question of the week. So let me tell you first off that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. All really wonderful things, and we are going to give you the results of last week's Share Your Experience question of the week. I know that we have a bunch of people out there that love this, and I can tell you right now, for everybody out there that hates it, Johnny P. Angel is the one that has the entire time been choosing and directing everything. So all of your hate mail, all of your mean comments and mean tweets, please tag Johnny P. Angel. Just getting that out there. But last week, we asked you to complete the sentence. It was really petty when God blank. And here are the three favorites. Number 3, Corey Starkkiller says, it was really petty of God to hide my keys, so I would have to pray to him to find them. That is true. They don't mention that. They don't, God helps you find the keys, but why the hell they go missing in the first place? Mysterious ways, I'm sure.
It's all got to be Satan.
Right? You know what? That's right. Satan hides your keys. Yeah. That's it. What a weird power.
Can you preemptively pray to keep your keys from getting lost?
I've heard if you tithe enough.
Be like, God, can you dispatch a special angel?
Yeah.
To keep my keys from getting lost?
What's that song? Angels watching over me? That's what they're talking about, right? Number 2, Van Halen Isolated says, it was really petty when God killed Job's whole family just to win a bet with Satan. That is true. That's messed up. I've done some weird things in bets. We're not going to talk about them here. It's probably get us kicked off. But I've never done that one. That seems like a lot.
Killing a whole family?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I can happily tell everybody today, just in case they were worried, I have never in my life killed a whole family for a bet.
Should we believe him?
You guys are good skeptics. You know what to do with that. Number 1 from last week, Seraphim84 says, it was really petty when God said, pass to the uggos, bringing him bread or even coming in his house, which is interesting. And we've got the reference here. This is Leviticus 21, verses 17 to 24. So it says, Say to Aaron, for the generations to come, none of your descendants who has a defect may come near to offer the food of his God. No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed. No man with a crippled foot or hand, or who is a hunchback or a dwarf. Holy shit. Or who has any eye defect, or who has festering or running sores or damaged testicles. Oh my God, no descent of Aaron the priest who has any defect is to come near to present the food offerings to the Lord. He has a defect. He must not come near to offer the food of his. My God, this keeps going for another 2-3 verses like that. This is crazy. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Fuck you.
Do you think that they actually enforce this? Like,
I have
hang
no
on,
idea.
hold up. You're bringing something to God. Quick testicle check. Okay, they're both there.
Hang on,
they're both
let me
there.
see.
You can go in. Oh, hold up,
Left
hold up.
one's a little like I really like the idea though of instead of trying to tell somebody that they're not attractive, you're just like, Leviticus 21 over here, 17 through 24, am I right?
Also, where do you draw the line at disfigured?
Absolutely.
Right? Like,
super good question.
The scar, it's like, is it too big of a scar? Is it like, oh, you broke a bone and
I've got a little bit of a lazy eye.
Yeah.
Does that not get, could I not offer food anymore?
You go into the temple and, you can offer it. God just doesn't want to see you come into his presence. You have to give the offering to someone else.
I see.
To beautiful people.
It's
because
cover that shit
otherwise,
up is what
when
it
you
is.
enter into the presence of God, God's just going to sit there and go like, ugh, brother, ugh. Like, what's that?
I love that. What an all-loving, great God,
Yeah.
Perfect design and everything, but then was like, oh, some of you guys are going to be fucked up.
God
That's my fault, but whatever.
Invents hunchbacks, gets grossed out by them.
There's a meme there for sure. Yeah, there's something there, Gosh, that's good. Thank you so much, Seraphim84.
I apologize to
for
the
that.
hunchback community on behalf of Leviticus 21.
Yeah, seriously. Like, come on. There was a famous one over in like
Notre Dame?
Yeah, I was gonna say in Paris area or something. I think there was a documentary. But anyway, that, folks, was our last Share Your Experience segment on the Atheist Experience. But don't worry, because if you really love this segment, keep participating in Truth Wanted's We Want the Truth and Talk Heathens Talk Heathen to Me, and you will still have an awesome opportunity there. Now, I'm going to talk about this cool stuff that we got coming up here in just a second. But before we do that, I'm going to remind you, folks, that the lines are open, okay? It is super duper easy. We are here. We are ready. We want to know what you believe and why you believe it. Hey, maybe there is somebody out there that is saying to themselves, God, I don't think secularism is a good idea. Maybe there's people out there that say to themselves, if you're an atheist, you should be thrown in jail. Well, today is a really good day to try and make that fucking case, because we are here to say we disagree. But as we are getting some of those good calls, and we've already got a couple stacked up, I am going to tell you guys about this awesome thing that has been happening in the heart of the Bible Belt itself, right in Nashville, Tennessee. And I am thrilled to be able to be working with the ACA and getting the opportunity to talk about this. So we noticed over the last year or so, a couple of my friends that have been involved in a lot of different secular activities, right? Both online and in person. We noticed that every time we were out at one of these events, there were people that we had never seen before. And we had just gone to, some march the other day, or we had gone to a Recovering from Religion chapter, or, Americans United for Separation of Church and State. We'd gone to these things and we'd seen these new people, and every single time we asked them, hey, why weren't you at that last event? They said, what event? I have no idea what you're talking about. And we realized one of the big hurdles that we have on our side as the secular community, we don't have networks of connection. See, on the religious side, they've got the churches that brings everybody together every week, but they've also got the religious group that just organizes events around town or throughout the year. They've got an entire group that all they do is print marketing materials to pass out to the churches. They are constantly connecting and supporting, and it's just, I mean, it's this whole incestuous web.
That's not even to mention their TV shows and radio broadcasts and stuff.
Yeah, and they've been doing it for how many hundreds of years, right? Yeah. And so we realized what we need is a dedicated organization to connecting and supporting our people. And so that's why myself and a couple of other non-believers in Nashville, Tennessee founded Secular Rising US, a brand new nonprofit organization dedicated to connecting and supporting atheist, humanist, and secular people throughout the South. And we already have some really, really cool things, you know. I know, for instance, you're familiar with NanoCon, the Nashville Nuns Convention. We are bringing that back. It is the largest gathering of atheists and non-religious people in the entire freaking state, man. We're going to have about 400 people out there for a whole weekend. We are taking over this state park. It is going to be so freaking amazing, man. And we have so many other really, really cool opportunities. The biggest thing that's coming up right now is not tomorrow, but the next Monday, March 31st, we are actually launching our organization with a really, really awesome fundraiser live stream, kind of similar to what the ACA did just about a week or so ago. And that was so much fun. There were so many people involved. Now, look, we are not going 24 hours, you guys, okay? But it will be about 4 or 5-ish. We have a lot of incredible people that are coming on. You're going to be hanging out with us. The wonderful Anthony Magnabosco, Promise, Eve Was Framed. I mean, we have just a whole slew of incredible people. And I know our wonderful chat moderators out there have been throwing up some links and stuff for me, which I greatly, greatly appreciate. Guys, our goal is to help secular people find their people. And that is what we are building. 2025 is going to be a huge, huge year for us. And I understand why. There could be some people that are a little bit bummed out right now. I could understand why some people wake up in the morning and are not particularly thrilled about the scene that they see in the world right now. And I understand that. Honestly, it's easy to disconnect in those times. It's easy to close the door and just not pay attention to any of it. But I think that's the exact reason we need to get together. I think that is the exact reason we have to start putting structure in place today so that 5, 10, 15 years from now, we're unstoppable, you guys. So hang out with us, 5:30 p.m. Central Time, March 31st. That's not tomorrow, Monday, but it is the next Monday. Come hang out with us because we will be doing it up. We will be having a lot of fun, man. So it will be a good time, and we've already had a really good time this weekend. But we are here to do business.
Hell yeah, we are.
We got stuff to do, man. So we are going to talk to some people that we have on the lines. And again, folks, get those calls in as we make it easy for you, 512-991-9242. Or you can just hit us up online, tiny.cc/call-AXP. We make it easy. So we are going to go out to Michigan. We're going to talk with Bill, him. Wants to talk about some gravity and some university stuff, it sounds like. Hey, Bill, what you got for us?
Hi. That's a great lead-in to my particular theory here. Let me tell it to you. So what is the purpose of life, the universe, and everything? I can show at a minimum it's to entangle every particle with every other particle in the universe in order to resolve uncertainty. In other words, to gain knowledge. I can show that it's a conserving function, which is equivalent to a purpose. This is not merely philosophical. This is mathematical and logical. Function of the heart is to pump blood. That function is also its purpose. The universe has a conserving function of eternally gaining knowledge by entangling every particle with every other particle. It has no more other fundamental function, and that is the precise definition of purpose.
So hang on just a second, Bill. I just want to clarify something on my end, because I just want to make sure you're not, when you're saying this, you're not saying it from the perspective of like an outside imposed purpose or anything, right? Are you saying like this is just how the universe operates, or Are you saying like,
Yes.
Okay. So you're just saying this is more of like a description of the universe, very similar to like how like the laws of logic and the laws of physics and stuff are now, right?
Exactly. And it derives from the laws.
Okay, that's interesting.
So morals naturally fall out of this framework. Imagine the data richness in a collaborative, flat hierarchy network of cultivated diversity and depth, whose purpose is to resolve uncertainty and spread knowledge instead of building towers. Instead of the destructive, status-seeking, greed-driven, celebrity caste system approach that rewards bad behavior and entrenches the meritless oligarchy.
Bill, can you slow down for a second? It sounds like you're reading off of a script. Can you reword it in a way that is a little bit like I'm trying to follow you as best I can, but it sounds very like technobabble. And I was wondering if you could maybe like rephrase it in a way that like us and our audience can easily understand.
Okay, so basically, the universe has a lot of entanglement where matter particles will bump into each other and then they're entangled. And then it has to resolve the spin for the second particle being measured. Now, all this happens on cosmic horizons when two particles bump and their spin needs resolved. So that way, if A is up and B is down, the cosmic horizon actually correlates A and B on the horizon. And when it does that, it erases a piece of horizon, making the universe smaller. It emits a Hawking photon to conserve total energy. But basically, the universe from gravity is interacting particle to particle until the cosmic horizons get so small that the universe resets in a big bang.
Let me say something. Just a second, Bill. So I don't want to be rude, right? I don't want to be rude when I say this, but, and I've done this a bunch, by the way. This was actually something that when I left religion, this was the last little bit of this kind of thinking that I had to get away from. And it's difficult, but a lot of times what happens is we'll see one or two things out there in the world, and because we are so good at finding those patterns and connecting those dots to make a shape, we end up getting like 4 or 5 different things that are all individually by themselves maybe supported, right? The entanglement of particles is a thing that we have continued to learn more and more about. But for instance, what exactly does that mean? What is the entanglement of those particles exactly? Does it literally mean that they're twisted together? Because I would argue, no, that is not what the physicists are trying to say. But what happens is we get a couple of those and then we go, oh yeah, now I get it. But in reality, our thing isn't supported. Those individual things are. Go ahead, brother.
Well, I guess one of the things that I may have misunderstood, Bill, and please correct me if I'm wrong. It sounded like you said that particles are becoming more and more entangled until every particle in the universe is entangled. And as far as my very limited understanding of quantum physics is concerned, you can have two particles that are entangled with each other.
Right.
I'm not aware that you can have them entangled with more than one other particle. And correct me if I'm wrong.
You actually can't.
Okay.
Yeah, now you actually can, but usually two particles is the most easiest to entangle. But the point is this, is the cosmic horizons, they're built by particles that cross are encoded as negative energy. So each particle that crosses the horizon is encoded as information.
Are you saying the horizon of the black hole?
No, this is the cosmic horizon.
The cosmic horizon.
This is what causes dark energy that makes the universe spread apart. That's the cosmic horizon that does that. It's a gravitating. It operates like a relative inverted black hole. And it encodes particles through the holographic principle as bits of negative energy on the cosmic horizon. So when you use gravity, the cosmic horizon projects the gravity down locally from the information of that particle crossing in order to resolve spins.
Have you reached out to, if you're in Michigan, I mean, Michigan's a fairly big state, and please don't tell us where don't dox yourself or anything, Bill. But if you're in Michigan, like I know that there are at least a handful of universities in Michigan that you could probably reach out to somebody in the physics department or something. Have you done that by any chance? Like, just hit somebody up and said, like, hey, here's my thoughts.
Yeah, and I did. And this guy, he's a GR person, so he's not really into quantum mechanics as much.
Okay.
But he actually is afraid to do the math. Now, I've got the math for him, and you can see this.
Okay.
I have this online on ResearchGate. You could look it up. The math ties out. It's simple. The problem is, I can tell he's afraid to do the math because it will work.
Why would he be
has to
afraid?
explain why it works.
Bill, why don't you?
I don't know. That's the weird thing because it's so unusual. I found 3 ways I can calculate the per Planck area of gravitational energy of any black hole. I've got 3 separate ways. GR, I've got the Landauer limit at Hawking temperature, which is a GR quantum mechanics hybrid, and I have an informational only using just a term of a photon, dividing out the fine structure constants and then multiplying that number by
Bill, why do you think you discovered this? I mean, I don't know if you've thought about this, but why do you think you came across this and nobody else did?
That's an interesting story. So what happened was I have a guy who helps me out around the house because I'm retired and I'm disabled. And he asked, we talk about science and stuff, and he asked what can be done with the energy in a constrained degree of freedom. And at first I gave him the hash answer everyone gives, nothing. But then he said, that's weird. And I said, you know what? You're right. I owe you a better answer. So I went and looked, what can you do with the energy in a constrained degree of freedom? And I found the Landauer limit at Hawking temperature, and I found out that the energy in a constrained degree of freedom is exactly the same energy in gravity, the same energy in Hawking information. And that's how I found it. It was just to answer a friend's question, but it took me down a rabbit hole that I found gravity.
Bill, I think that's fantastic, and I don't want to poo-poo it. I also, as someone who I'm not a physicist myself, I'm not going to try to I genuinely cannot confirm or deny your hypothesis one way or another, but I do know that the avenue for getting something like this accepted in academia is to publish your work. And you don't have to be affiliated with a university. You can be an independent scholar. Thousands of them publish all the time, but it has to pass muster by experts in the field. I'm not an expert. So I think it's great that you have this hypothesis. If you're able to write it up and the math checks out and you have a legitimate theory that you can take to a scientific journal or a publication, then go for it. I guess where my reluctance comes into play as someone who I have people send me messages like this all the time that will tell me that they have an answer, that they've solved some big problem of something in the universe. And sometimes it might be something I genuinely don't know. Other times I see stuff that's very crackpotty, and it's just I'm not the person to vet this stuff. There are entire mechanisms in place in order to try to figure out this stuff, and it's how we solve and figure out and push science forward. So if you've got something, man, if you've done the math, I really encourage you to get it published because that's the way forward. It's not through a call-in show.
Yeah, no,
like
I
this.
have. I've got it on ResearchGate, Berksa, and OSF.
Good.
I've also got a bunch of YouTube videos and stuff.
Was it?
And here's the thing.
What journal did you publish with? Out of curiosity, because
what's the journal? It's ResearchGate. The thing is, I tried journals, but there is so much academia gatekeeping and status.
Yeah, see, to me that right there is that is a warning flag to me because when I hear that peer review is gatekeeping, I hear it so many times from people who they're like, oh, they didn't publish my paper and it's therefore censorship. And a lot of times it's like, no, they didn't publish the paper because they looked at it and they said, there's this flaw, this flaw, this flaw that someone, and I don't know your background. You could have a master's degree in physics, you could have a PhD in physics, but there's a lot of people who go in to publish who don't, and they'll go to publish without even having any prerequisite education, and they'll miss things that we've already done decades of experiments to show don't work. So I don't know. I could be completely out of my element, Bill, and I genuinely apologize if I am. But that when I hear that to me, I just want to communicate why that would raise a red flag.
Well, I'll say this, Thomas. I've noticed that. Hang on just a second, Bill. I'll say this. I've noticed, there always seems to be gatekeeping in like academia, high-level academia, but there's never gatekeeping in like auto body mechanics for some reason. For some reason, nobody's coming up with all these fantastic ways to make cars run better, and then just all these car manufacturers are just not doing it or anything. It's like, no, the reason that your fucking vehicle doesn't get built by Ford next year is because they put it together and it fell apart, And that's not to say, oh, well, just it was a wasted venture, throw it to the side or anything. Of course not. Like, Thomas and I are absolutely going to tell you, Bill, like, please keep investigating this. Keep finding all of the places with this theory that it currently is not well-founded and bolster those claims.
And don't do it through self-publishing or through a predatory pay-to-play vanity press journal. And again, I'm not saying that your research is bullshit. I'm just saying this is not the avenue to go about it.
Yeah. So
here's the thing. I'm not so much trying to talk about my research. I'm actually talking about the implications of the entanglement, the resolving uncertainty.
Well, in fairness, just to try to be as charitable as possible, Bill, that there is not really much point to talking about that until we can demonstrate that the research that you've provided, that this thing is real, right? Like, we could sit around all day and try to talk about like the different flavors of grilled unicorn meat and like it's better to spice it with cumin as opposed to mango. Like, fine. But like, we should probably make sure that somebody's out there actually farming unicorns first. But we are going to let you go, Bill. Thank you so much. We do appreciate you. And again, I want to say this because I know both of us are on this wavelength, man. Like, keep researching, like keep studying that stuff. And like, how awesome would it be, Bill, if 5 years from now you are able to call back in and be like, guys, look at this Nobel Prize. Like, I mean, that's gorgeous. Tell us where we're wrong. It's just, provide some sources that are backed up.
Yeah, and that's where, like, when I hear someone like Bill come on and he's very confident in his theory or his hypothesis, and he's spewing out a lot of technical terminology, it's very, very easy to get caught up and you hear technical phrases and you're like, he sounds smart, he must know what he's talking about, therefore. But it's like, do you understand what he's saying?
Yeah.
Have people who understand what he's saying say that it actually makes sense.
Right.
And then say that, okay, we've gathered the data, we've looked at the experiments, we've done, ran the numbers, and there's potentially something to this. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes it's like maybe the math adds up, but then can it be demonstrated experimentally? Right. And if none of that is the case, and he's just like, I self-published something on ResearchGate, then I'm like, well, if this was really that groundbreaking, it's possible he's onto something.
Yeah, of course.
It's possible. But nowadays, like the edge of science, especially with something like physics, the boundaries that we're pushing is on the level of spending billions of dollars making more and more and more and more accurate experiments in order to try to like get one tiny little measurement that, by clashing millions of particles together. Exactly. And it's not that some guy's like suddenly waking up and having a revelation in his basement, because you have hundreds of thousands of scientists around the world that are also struggling with these problems, waking up, and then they're going out and they're testing and they're
and for a long time. We've been building on this for centuries, That's
not to say that we know everything.
Of course not.
I'm reluctant when I get calls like that to just be like, oh, that sounds interesting. Mm-hmm. He's proved whatever. Like, proved God or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, good news is we have a bunch of other really great calls, and you can call in too if you want, because the phone lines are open. But you got a good one you like?
Yeah, I was gonna say that we've got one caller who's been waiting for a while.
Yeah, cool. We will come right to you, Tim. I am just gonna say, tell everybody out there, you have one freaking job. That's it. Okay, that's it. One job. Just like the video. It's really easy. It takes like 5 seconds. It would be nice if you subscribe to the channel and enable notifications and posted a comment below, but if you so choose not to, then that is on you. You may or may not be burned in eternity in hell. We don't know. I just, it could be the case. We're just asking questions. But no, come on, do it already, because we are having a great time. And we are accepting super chats, and we might read them live on air if they are funny enough or worth our time enough. But we are terrible judges, so we'll probably just read all of them if you send them. Like this one from Jonathan France for $1.99 saying, cubes unto all of us and cubes unto you as well, Jonathan. Thank you so much for that.
Is that a Portal reference?
Yeah, we've been talking about cubes for a while here. It's it's some deep lore, and I just hope it just keeps going forever. Is there another one? Hang on, that wasn't given to me. That super chat was not. I can't. Okay, hey Thomas, I might no. See, I can't. You can't put those up there. Yeah. What do you? Okay, no, hang on. The crew's helping us out, guys. Hang on. We have $5 from LHRPG Official, saying, hey, Thomas, I'm a huge fan. I love your Cringe Fails series. Thank you for shedding light on the insanity that is religious indoctrination. You do have some good stuff, man.
Thank you. Kind words.
Miranda Rinsberger, been a member for a year, sending $10 saying, I wear glasses. Whew, I guess I'm exempt from going to church or tithing. Thank God. Yes, that's right, Miranda.
If
honestly,
you're legally blind.
That's it. Yeah. I can't go to church anymore, God. I can't offer you anything. I'm not going to tell you why. That is for the after show.
If I break my foot,
that's right.
Am I disfigured?
You're not allowed to go to church for that. It's kind of like the red tent when women are menstruating. It's you're in there for the period of time, and then once you're done, you're clean again. You can go back to doing stuff.
Does it follow then that menstruation is a disability?
You know what? That's fascinating. No, I do actually know some people that are ex-Muslims that when they were fasting for Ramadan, they would just tell everybody that they're on their period, because then everybody would be like, yeah, you're good, man. You don't got to worry about that. Drink your water, eat your food. Nobody's going to...
Somehow every year it starts on the first day of Ramadan.
So crazy.
It just lasts for 30 days. You know that periods last for 30 days?
Well, I have always heard that women are more connected to the moon cycle. Ramadan is based on the lunar calendar. I think it makes sense, you guys. Nobody check us, nobody fact check us or anything on that. But we do have Tim. We are gonna grab you. You are up in New York. He, him wants to talk about AI and some other cool stuff. Hey Tim, you were on AXP with Holy Koolaid and Secular Rarity. What you got?
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I've been watching the show for so long, most of my life, actually.
Nice.
So here's my best argument.
Yeah, real quick, just for a second here, because I see in the call notes it says Tim is 49% atheist and 51% believer. I just is that an accurate description of where you're at, Tim?
I'd say that's for the sake of argument. I think those are like pretty numbers for me. So
sure, but I mean, it sounds like you're saying you believe in a God, right, of some kind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I think believe is like more likely than not.
Okay. Why?
But fairly on
my argument here is, can I do I have the floor?
Go ahead, man. Yeah. Why do you believe this?
Okay. Because we've seen humans now create intelligence through like AI. And we've never seen intelligence birthed by, just naturally.
We've only ever seen white swans. We've never seen a black swan, SR. So black swans obviously can't be the case, right?
I've actually seen some black swans.
Oh, you've seen black swans? Oh, no way. Holy crap. Wait a second. Also, isn't that the black swan fallacy? So there's this thing, and it's, I'm sure you're familiar with it, Tim. I know. I imagine you're a very intelligent man. But these logical constructions sometimes fail just based on the actual way that the argument is structured. So, for instance, I have been lucky enough to get to do some car work recently, and there are certain processes that just have to happen a certain way. If you don't put this bolt exactly in this spot before you connect this thing, it just ain't gonna work, man. The car just ain't gonna turn on. It's just not gonna move, right? And that's the way arguments work as well. And so, for instance, if you're constructing this argument to get to this conclusion, and somewhere along the way, one of those structures doesn't exactly work, the whole argument has to be reworked. It doesn't mean that your conclusion is necessarily untrue, but it does mean that you can't get to that conclusion that way. So if the argument is, well, hey, man, we've seen people build intelligence. We've never seen intelligence just show up out of nowhere. Clearly, something had to build us because we're intelligent. God built us. God's real. That's you're using that bad construction there.
I'm
Does
not
that make
saying
sense?
it's proof. I'm not saying it's proof. I'm saying it's evidence.
I'm saying it's not because it's fallacious. I'm saying it can't be by the very definition of argumentation, right? Just like it can't be a car because it literally does not have an engine connected to axles and wheels. It can't be a car. It just cannot do the thing that you're saying it does. Does that make sense?
Okay. Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So, when we reach conclusions, what we do is we build this chain of argumentation. We may not be doing it consciously, right? But always we go through this thing where we say like, hey, this thing is the case, and then this thing is the case. And because of those things, this is the conclusion. Thing is, though, there are certain constructions like that we just know 100% of the time are unreliable. We cannot, using that method, get to a conclusion that makes us feel comfortable about it, that makes us go, you know what, more likely than not, that's the case. This is one of those, and it actually has a name, and it's called the black swan fallacy. And it literally comes from an experience many, many years ago in human culture where bunch of people were looking around and they were like, wow, all of these swans are white. We've never seen a black swan. Black swans must not exist. Funny enough, black swans do exist, but more importantly, that structure will never get you to a reliable conclusion. I know I shouted a lot at you, man, but I will shut up for a second to give you a moment to process and shout back.
So we know, what I'm saying is just we know with 100% certainty that it at least could be the case. But we don't know that intelligence could have just created without a spark.
Why not?
We don't know that.
Why? What's different about the two scenarios?
We've never seen it. We've never seen it.
So you're saying that humans, right, because we created artificial intelligence.
Can I step in? Can I say one thing? Can I say one thing about the black swan?
Sure, go ahead.
We know there's a black swan now.
Yeah.
But at the time when there were no black swans and they've gone to ends of the earth, then at that point it might be reasonable to say there's no black swan.
No, because the point is that the argumentation style itself, the way you formulate the argument, the conclusion does not follow from the premises. It's not that it's ruled out by it or it could potentially be ruled out by it, et cetera. It's that this line of reasoning does not necessitate that you get the conclusion from the premises. So if you say, we've seen artificial intelligence, we've never seen this, naturally formed form of intelligence, therefore all intelligence has to be constructed. That line of reasoning is the same line of reasoning as we've never seen a black swan, therefore they don't exist. It's like it could be true that there's no black swans at the time that they were arguing that. It could have been true that there were black swans. The point is that laying out the argument that way, it's not evidential. The conclusion does not follow from the premises.
However, my argument is only based on certainty. I'm saying I'm 51% certain because I have evidence. I don't have proof that it wasn't, that, I'm not saying I know with 100% certainty.
And we're not pushing back on that part. In all honesty, hang on just a second, Tim. In all honesty, we don't need to worry about that. Thomas and I aren't pushing back on that, okay? What we're saying is when you come back to us and go, well, hang on, guys. I'm not saying I'm like 100% certain here, but I am saying that I do have this thing right here in this folder. I got this on my side. What we're just trying to point out is that, hey, actually, you don't. Like, and that's okay, because in all fairness, we can't do that either. We don't get to say, well, hey, Thomas, I've never seen a God. Jesus has never once showed up right here in studio, so therefore, God must not exist. No, we're using the same improper argumentation structure that you would be using right there. And so that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're saying. Now, you could say this, though, Tim. You could say, hey, we have definitely seen people make some form of intelligence. So we can say that raises the likelihood of the possibility that intelligence requires some type of manufacture or construction, right? Maybe it raises the bar a little.
We know that it's possible to create consciousness,
right?
But even there, I would push back.
I
and
would
say,
too.
We don't necessarily know that what we have created is conscious.
Yeah.
We could call it artificial intelligence. You could even call it artificial general intelligence. But does it feel? Does it have emotion? Is it self-aware? Does it know that it's alive? Or is it simply like, and I know that now they're kind of past the point of large language models, but is it doing that same sort of method where it's predicting the next word that it's going to come up with just based off of an algorithm? And is that different from regular intelligence? I don't know.
Right.
But you're going up against the entire field of neuropsychology and neuroscience and computer science and artificial intelligence. Like, those are the people who are having the arguments saying, like, is it conscious, is it not? But I don't think that point is settled. I think it's far from being accepted that what we've created is intelligence in that way, and like a conscious, self-aware form of intelligence. So I don't even grant that point. And I would also push back on the point that, like, we haven't seen intelligence arise naturally. Every single animal on Earth that gives birth based off of a non-intelligent sperm and a non-intelligent egg made of purely natural substances that come together by the laws of nature, and the brain develops on its own, entirely on its own, forms naturally. We see that with every single species formed.
However, almost always their sexual selection requires intelligence.
No, but it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because I'm not.
Can I?
I'm not consciously forming this together in a way. Like it's the chemical processes that are going on are purely natural processes.
Right. I can leave an area, right, and just have 2 cows. Right? And those 2 cows can just breed a whole bunch without any human being ever doing jack shit. And all of those cows will be born, right? They will exist. They will have intelligence to some capacity, right? Is it the same level of intelligence as humans? No, I think there's good reason to say that there is a gradient, there is a scale. But we do see intelligence forming all the time naturally. It's honestly just the fact that you're starting this off, Tim, with the conclusion that intelligence has to be created, that it can't just form naturally. Because if you didn't start with that conclusion, you would agree, like, all of these animals, I don't know how involved you are whenever your dog gives birth, but I can promise you I have never been that, intimate with it. So it just, I don't know. You tell me, man. These cows are doing something and they keep making more of them. So shout back to us, Tim. What do you think?
Well, I'm just saying their selection still does require some level of intelligence. Like,
but how can you say that? What is it that you are basing that off of?
Can I just take a step back for a second, because you're telling me,
Sure.
Oh, Jesus doesn't show up in the studio. I mean, I get that, but all I'm saying is that it makes it more likely. I'm not saying that it's absolute proof. I'm saying that's why I'm only at 51%. And I'm saying if I'm not claiming it's a conclusion. I'm not claiming,
But you are.
Seen this,
I mean, you are, Tim.
No, I'm not.
You are at a conclusion.
I think that I'm not. I'm only at this seems like it's more likely. Not a conclusion.
Look,
not that I know.
Look, I'm not gonna harp on it, Tim. But every single person can go back and watch how you started this call, and I appreciate that. Now, the language that you are using is one of a bit more of humility. Is one of a bit more of like, hey, it raises the potential, or the likelihood is slightly shifted. Those are the right terms to be using here, right? But when you started this call, my brother, I mean, please go back and watch it. There was no uncertainty in your statements. You were quite certain, which is okay. It is okay to be passionate and be interested in presenting the information. But let's make sure, hang on just a second, Tim. I'm in the middle of speaking, brother. I know you know how conversation works. You a smart man. When we are having these conversations, especially about things like this, like Thomas was saying, this is stuff that is now so well researched. This is deep, deep stuff, man. You're talking about artificial intelligence. This isn't something that we just, scratched around in the dirt with a stick and figured out. This took a lot of people doing a lot of research and demonstrating that it is true over and over and over again. So in these discussions, it's really, really a good idea to be like, hey, I think this maybe sort of increases, as opposed to being like, well, yeah, obviously intelligence has to be created, which again, I really do feel like you came in more with that energy. But what you got, man? What do you got, Thomas?
Well, I kind of want to hear Tim's response first.
What do you think, Tim?
I mean, I did tell the call screener that I said it was 51%, and I told you that from the beginning as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to harp on the point, man. Just move on. You were very confident when you called in, okay? And it's okay. You're using the right language now. So let's continue the conversation in that capacity.
All I'm saying is that puts me just sways toward thinking. And that's what changes you from an atheist, because atheists is just believe, like, you don't know and I don't know. So that's why I think that being a source of evidence is important. But to the black swan argument, I mean, we've never seen a pig with a particular set of green polka dots, like purple and green and blue polka dots. So that's why I would think that by the evidence I've seen, that probably isn't. There probably aren't pigs like that.
Okay, so that's fine. And probably aren't.
I think that the argument that Tim is trying to make is a case for inductive reasoning, which is it is how science operates. It's you look at, okay, we've dropped a ball 500 times. Doesn't necessarily guarantee that the 501st time that the ball won't just float up into the atmosphere, that everything we know about gravity is wrong. But you do build cases based off of what you've seen and what you've experienced. I think there's a difference between saying we've tested this, we've performed this, we've seen this, and so we're going to operate within the realm of the world that we see. But to say that intelligence can't exist or doesn't exist because we haven't observed it, that's where I think Elliot was pushing back. Mm-hmm. My pushback would be more on, even if I grant all of that and say like, okay, yeah, we've seen this and we haven't seen this, I would say we haven't. We don't know, for one, with artificial intelligence. We might get there. In fact, I think there's a good chance that we will get there to a point where artificial intelligence is sentient and is self-aware and everything. Great. But just because we've figured out how to replicate the natural mechanisms of the brain, everything that we know about how the universe formed, everything that we know about abiogenesis, we can go and perform studies, whether it's the Miller-Urey experiment way back in the early 1900s that found that things like amino acids, which are like the building blocks of proteins, form naturally in a lab under conditions similar to what the early Earth was like. We found not just amino acids, but nucleic acids and stuff forming together in a recreation of what early... you have these little steam vents under the ocean where there's energy and there's heat that's coming up, and you've got all of these little molecules, and they form together naturally using the laws of physics. They form together into protocells. They form little cell-like cell walls based off of lipids simply because one side is hydrophilic and one side's hydrophobic, and they form together on their own, similar to little drops of oil in water. We see these things coming together, and that's barely scratching the surface of the amount of research that has been done on the field of abiogenesis. And the more pieces of the puzzle that you get, the more you start to see that, like, oh wow, we don't know everything about how this came together, but we know from all of the pieces that we do have what the picture is of. And it's of life slowly emerging naturally from non-life, slowly forming together into protocells, and then prokaryotes and eukaryotes and multicellular organisms. And we have all of the different steps along the way of the different fossils and the different, little markers and stuff. And we can look at the fossil record and see, on the timescales that we would expect to see it. That's how we see it, and they're in the layers and the order that we would expect to see. And like, you can genetically test a lot of specimens, and like once you get into like more recent times, genetic material can survive for a while, and you can see the mutation rates and how quickly they change. So like, you get this picture, this big picture that comes together, that it's very hard to look at that and say that this didn't come about naturally. So then to just come along and just do a blanket statement of we've never seen it come about naturally, right. I would argue we have only ever seen it come about naturally.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tim?
Okay. Well, that speaks like far down in the process, but we don't know that, however many billions of years ago, that the spark, like for instance, and you guys don't seem to like computer simulation arguments. Is that correct? Like, I don't know. I've noticed you guys don't love that, but anyway, we can create a computer simulation where, okay, so many X years into the computer simulation, this event occurs. Like we set up the surrounding circumstances. So we don't know that, and I'm just saying that's not strongly convincing, because we don't know at the beginning point that, some deity, some God didn't spark the.
But why is that even coming into the thought process here, Tim? This is this is a big problem, and this is why I said you were already reaching the conclusion, is because where you start off in this chain here, in this kind of thinking, right? You are starting off with this conclusion that, hey, actually, a God is it's totally possible that there was this deity that made all this. And Thomas and I are just kind of going like, well, hang on, wait a second. Like, how are you showing that this God is possible? And then when we get to that, what we have is an argument construction that we know isn't reliable.
It's basically a God of the gaps argument.
Right.
It's saying, well, you know what? We see all of the steps of this thing going all the way back to this point, and there's this tiny little point where we don't have this last puzzle piece, therefore God. The problem is that this argument has been used, this way of arguing for God, as evidence for God, has been used all the way back to like when we didn't know how gravity worked. And so it was the gods were pushing the planets along in the sky with chariots. We figure out how that works. Well, God is responsible for this, and then it's responsible for for that, and then it's responsible. And then as we slowly get more and more and more pieces of this puzzle, those gaps for God to hide in have been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until there's almost nowhere left for him to hide. So God gets relegated back to like the points of science that are very, very difficult to measure and observe. And when scientists will look at that and say, okay, yeah, we don't know exactly what happened before the Big Bang. We don't know. We don't know if that was the beginning. We don't know if there were infinite cyclical universes. We're figuring it out still. And I think that's where the theists will be like, aha, got them. They don't know, therefore God. And it's like, if you want to keep using that argument, those gaps are just going to keep shrinking. And are you willing to, when that gap gets filled, to give it up and say, okay, I was wrong about that, let's reconsider? Or are you going to be like, okay, well, we figured that one out, but God is responsible for this over here?
Yeah. And Tim, I know we've been shouting at you a bit, but we do have a couple of other really good calls.
Can I make one more?
You got 30 seconds. Get going.
Well, like I said, we have a similar computer process where the human can begin the simulation and give the parameters. So that's why I'm saying only by a preponderance of evidence. I'm just saying it's not impossible because...
Yeah, we're not saying it's impossible either, though. What we're saying is that information, what we're saying, Tim, is that information that you're bringing to the table as saying is a preponderance of evidence does not meet that criteria. That's what we're trying to say. We're not saying it's impossible. We are not saying that just because we've never seen a God do it means it has to. That is not where we're at, okay? But, again, we do have a couple of other really good calls, man. So we are just going to abruptly let you go. But, man, seriously, call us back, okay? If you're 49% atheist and 51% believer, I got to be honest, I just want to know about that. That's fascinating to me. I don't know how that works in and of itself. So please do call us back and let's talk more about artificial intelligence and stuff. We have a couple of other really good calls, but before I grab them, I'm going to let you know about some cool things because if you are in the Austin area, you should follow this group, the Atheist Community of Austin, on Meetup to keep up with the community events because there is always cool stuff that is happening. It is super duper easy to find, tiny.cc/ACA Meetup. You got philosophy under the stars, game nights, and more. I heard something about some hiking going on. I don't walk long distances very well. I'm much more dwarvish in that, very short bursts. So that's right.
Sprint to the refrigerator.
That's right. And back to the couch, baby. That's it. I should also let you know that you can join in on the weekly watch parties right here at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. That's right. It is every freaking Sunday. Doors open at noon, and it is a great place for building community. And that is so freaking true. We got a couple of good calls. I'm excited. I'm thinking we go up to Illinois. We talked to Denny, he, him as a theist and a Gnostic Christian and just wants to talk about science and God and all that good stuff. Well, Denny, you're in the right place, man, because you were on the Atheist Experience. What you got for us?
Hey, what's up, guys? How you been?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Yes.
I wanted to start off by asking, do you see God as a human invention?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the best descriptions. I think deities in general were things that, were created by various human cultures. I think
it depends on how you define God.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. But
of course, yeah, it does matter. So you say yes to this question, yeah?
Again, I think our answer was a little bit more nuanced than that, but for the sake of it, let's just say yes. Let's see where this script goes.
So yeah, the script. So many people, philosophers, mathematicians in the past, they saw God not as a being in the sky. They saw it as the foundation of existence, the energy that sustains all living things behind the material.
Yeah.
That's science calls it dark matter, 95% invisible.
So what that sounds like to me?
Equivocation.
Yeah, that sounds like. Do you know what equivocation is? Do you know what Thomas was just bringing up there?
I'm not quite sure, no.
No, that's okay. Thomas, what is it?
So equivocation is where you will you'll present one argument, right, that has one meaning of one word, and you'll lay out the case for this argument. And then when you jump to the conclusion based off of a different definition of that specific word. So when you present a case like this where you say, well, your definition of God is this man-made construct, but actually the definition of God is something that's more the energy of the universe or something like that. And scientists have found energy in the universe, therefore they've proved God. Well, you've just basically redefined God as the energy of the universe, and because that exists, then that exists. You haven't really gotten anywhere. All you've shown is that, scientists believe that there's energy in the universe.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Do you get what we're saying, Denny?
Yeah. Sorry?
Do you understand what we're saying here, Denny? Do you get what Thomas was explaining
I do,
there?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Is there more that you wanted to get into?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't redefine God. That's what I see in the science books in the 1500s, 1600s, Isaac Newton.
No, what we're saying
God
is
the governing.
no. Denny, hang on.
Yeah.
We're not saying that you redefined God, right? Thomas and I are both fairly familiar with that type of construction for the definition of a deity. We both know that that's what people say, right? Like, for instance, you might have heard this, Denny. I don't know. It says you're a Gnostic Christian, so maybe if you've heard this, that Jesus Christ isn't a man. Jesus Christ is a relationship. Christianity isn't a religion. It's how you live your life, man. Like, that's all fine and well and good. What that is flowery, metaphoric, poetic language. And it's really pretty, but it doesn't have any actual connection and bearing to the real world. And so what we're saying is that you went out there and you found this one esoteric definition of God that a lot of people like to use. And the way that the definition is constructed is one with a bunch of different terms that have like 6, 7, maybe 8 different meanings. And then you found this other piece of information over here that uses one of those words with one of those meanings, and you went, ha ha! There it is. Got it. Proof. And that's what we're trying to say, is that when scientists are talking about energy, when they talk about the energy radiating outward from the Big Bang, or kinetic energy, potential energy, all that cool shit, what they're talking about is something that is very different than what the people that are talking about God energy are talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I just explain one definition because I cannot explain everything I know, but you have to understand that God is the principle within man. So your conscious perception of reality shapes the external reality and internal.
I don't
so
feel
your
like you really internalized what we
Yeah.
said, Denny. I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to move on because, every second that passes today, I get closer to free pizza. So I'm thrilled no matter what the fuck happens with this call. But I'll just tell you, based on that response, Denny, honestly, I believe you did not hear a single word either of us said, which is okay. Like, whatever. We do this regularly. Call us back. But what are your thoughts, Thomas?
Yeah, it very much is equivocation, because it's basically saying, like, God is energy, or God is this interconnected something or other, and we have something similar to that defined by physicists. And it's like, usually when physicists are talking about energy, they're talking about something very measurable and very tangible. Is it gravitational energy? Is it potential energy? Is it kinetic energy? Can we measure it in heat? Can we measure this in watts? Can we, like, what kind of energy is this that we're talking about here? And if you just have this hypothetical energy in the universe, it's like, well, is it bottled up and stored somewhere? Does it have consciousness? That's a very, very different thing. And if someone's saying, like, oh yes, there's energy that connects all of us together, okay, yes, I guess. I mean, like, right now, there's particles in this room that are moving about with kinetic energy.
Technically.
And my breath has particles that are moving faster, so I have hot breath. And so I'm like, and my particles have bounced off of my breath particles, have bounced off of secular rarity and warmed him up. And so we're all connected in this way.
Gross.
But it's like, that's not what people mean when I hear them talk about how we're interconnected. It's some sort of like psychic connection. We have some sort of, I can read minds, I can see into the future, or maybe God can read my mind, or God knows where I am at all times, and he's somehow able to interact with and change the laws of physics without somehow changing the laws of physics. And it's just, these definitions start being really wiggly wobbly, and you'll see people make an argument for God. And it's like, they'll be like, oh yeah, God exists because of this. And then they start to then say, and so therefore the Bible, and therefore and when you attack that and you say, no, hold up, you didn't make a case for, God being conscious. There's no proof that this, then they'll be like, oh no, I was just arguing that this energy thing that everyone agrees upon exists. And it's called a Mott and Bailey argument. You set up basically like you have the Mott and the Bailey, and like one of them, it's kind of like with castle terminology, right? So one of them is this far-fetched, insane claim, And you kind of like make the case for that, and everyone draws the conclusion that that's where the evidence leads. But then if their argument sounds absurd and someone pushes back, they can drop back to the Bailey and just be like, oh no, I never actually said that. I was really just arguing for this really simple thing that's not really that controversial. And so that's what I hear. That's the vibes that I'm getting from this kind of argument.
Which is another good term there, vibes. That gets thrown around all the time. But what do you think, Denny? I know we've shouted a bunch at you, so what do you think? I might have.
But like you said, you just gave very good examples, but science explains the origins of God because 95% is dark matter. It's unknown to science. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So we don't deny that existence. It is considered God just because it's divine origins. We have to accept and appreciate how beautiful it is.
Did you just say that dark matter is... Hang on. Did you just say that dark matter is God? Is that what you just said?
No, I'm saying the 95% of the invisible universe problem is considered God because it's non-measurable by any mathematical or physical observation.
So just real quick, Denny, I would love if we could have this moment together, okay? When you tell me 95% of the universe is this particular undetectable material, do you see why I feel like that statement is weird? I just want to know, do you, let me try it again. When you tell me that we have detected that 95% of the universe is undetectable, do you see why I push back a little bit, Denny? Do you see why I'm a little exasperated with that thought? Does it make sense?
Yes.
Why? Tell me for my own clarity, for my peace of mind and sleeping well tonight. Why is that a weird statement, Denny?
Because we don't know, therefore God. So that's your argument.
Thank you. Hang on, I've got you on mute just super abruptly and rudely because what you just said is completely wrong. So it sounds to me like you're not following, which is great because I have a chance to explain. Hey, Thomas, if I tell you that I've detected that 95% of the free thought library is undetectable, does that statement strike you a little weird?
It does.
Why?
And I want to push back, but I also want to defend Denny here.
Okay.
Right. I want to be charitable.
Please, let's be charitable.
What you're saying is we have detected it even though it's not detectable, which is it's a contradiction of terms.
Right.
If you can't detect it, then you can't detect it.
How would we know that 95% of the universe is undetectable?
What I would push back, and where I think Denny might have just been a little bit sloppy with the wording, is that there are things in the universe. Sure. There are ways of detecting things, for example, like the gravitational pull and the density of galaxies and things like that lead scientists to be like, there's something else.
Okay.
There's some other force.
Yeah.
That is at work here.
Okay.
Right? There's something else that's going
Fair
on
enough.
here. And that's because the models are not
perfect
to account for this. And so it's, in a way, he's right. We haven't straight up measured or detected dark matter or dark energy. That doesn't mean that there isn't reason to think that it's there.
Sure.
So
maybe just a little bit more
so I would give him a little bit of grace there,
I appreciate that. That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. And so we're all helping each other today, Denny. So it's not that we haven't really detected it, right? Again, this is that equivocation thing. There's multiple meanings for this word detection, right? There's multiple meanings for whether or not something is undetectable. So again, we had this with the last caller, too. A little bit of humility in these spaces, I think, is really warranted. You're coming in here saying the foundation of dark matter, which is energy that sustains all things, is called God. Like, a little bit of humility, my brother, would be wonderful in this moment. Thomas and I are not saying that dark energy definitively cannot, 100% cannot be God. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying that, hey, man, there's a lot of this already on the face of it. That's a little odd. Again, just like when somebody comes up to me and says, man, 95%, we've detected 95% of the universe is undetectable. I perk up a little bit and I go, that's weird, man.
The other thing to point out is the reasons that we say we have reason to believe in this stuff is because there's certain interactions that, so, maybe it's the rate of gravity or the rate of expansion or things like that we have measured and we have determined based off of those measurements what the speed should be and stuff. So it's like our only, quote, detection of, and again, I'm not an astrophysicist, so I want to couch that up front, but our way of knowing about this stuff, it's like that's what we see in the universe is the fact that, maybe it's expanding too quickly or something like that. It's not that we're detecting that this dark energy is then suddenly like somehow spontaneously like just generating a planet here and curing grandma's cancer over there and doing this over here. Like those are the types of things that like we could measure. So if there was an interactive God of some sort, then yeah, but I don't want to put words in
I know.
I feel like we've been a little uncharitable to him.
Well, no, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Look, sometimes we get things wrong. We hear things wrong. So I'm always happy to correct, And anytime, if we're ever saying something that isn't right, Denny, you just let us know. Say, hey, that's not what I said. But I know we shouted a good bit at you. So give us some thoughts, man. What do you think here?
Yeah, so you said some quite good things, and I agree some of them, but again, just because there's dark matter, you say doesn't mean there's God, doesn't mean there's intelligence. Just because you detected something, you don't even say, yeah, we didn't even detect it, so how could we didn't know it's 95%? I get what you're saying. So science agrees that there's invisible layer of reality which shapes the mathematical laws, the Fibonacci sequence and Golda ratio, which operate under an invisible wall, which many scientists agree actually. It proves that most of reality is beyond our perception, which supports the mystics which taught for centuries. It's not only the material world, it's just a fraction of existence.
You're losing me.
Yeah,
you're losing me.
I wanted to give him a second. Yeah.
The golden wall hiding, or the golden ratio hidden behind a wall of something.
Yeah, and the invisible stuff, the invisible like layer of reality that influences the physical and stuff. It almost sounds to me a bit, okay, Denny, it almost sounds a bit to me in what's called like a presuppositional apologetics kind of line of argumentation. And this was actually something, oh gosh, my buddy Gary knows this more than I do, but this guy Bonson, he made this really popular. Somebody else, Cornelius something, made it, Cornelius Till or something, I don't know. Anywho, it kind of has this flavor of like, hey man, like, you can't even have logic or reasoning or matter at all unless you have God, the ultimate axiomatical instantiation of substantive existence or something. It's just really, it's a bunch of big words, and it's a lot of terminologies that don't exactly connect up, but people say them very confidently and then move on and expect the other person to have to answer those questions. And I don't like that argumentation. And the reason I don't like that argumentation is because, in part, well, we can just do anything like that. And if we have two competing hypotheses, and honestly, they're both as likely, we do not have an answer. We are still in the same boat of confusion and question mark, man. And so this line of argumentation, unfortunately, can be used for everything. I mean, for everything, not just religion, but for fucking unicorns. I mean, for Bigfoot, like all of this stuff. I highly doubt you believe that there are actually magical tree nymphs living in the forest in North America. And yet, through this line of argumentation, we could get to this place where we would have to agree, yeah, okay, these magical tree nymphs exist. So I would love if, I always give people homework, okay? And I'm terrible about this. And you don't have to. You can tell me to go fuck myself. It's pretty easy. But I would love if you, after this call, spent some time reading through some of that presuppositional apologetic script and listening to some of the people that have some really good, responses to it. I have heard that there is a channel on YouTube. It's this interesting little place on the web. A bunch of people get on there and like make videos and stuff. I've heard there's this guy, Holy Koolaid or something. I don't know if you've heard, but I've heard he has some stuff on it, so it might be helpful there. But yeah, you ever heard of presuppositional apologetics? Am I like totally off base here, or is this like, are you flipping to page 13?
I'm definitely going to research. Yeah.
Yeah, great, man. That's awesome. I love that. We do have a couple of other calls, but Thomas, was there anything else you wanted to say to Denny before we get going?
I think I'm good on this one.
Sweet. Well, Denny, we are going to just abruptly drop you, but thank you so much for calling in. And I really do. I know that there were a couple of times I might have come at you a little hard, and I apologize. That's why Thomas is here to rein me back in. But give us a call back. We're here every Sunday, man. Same time, same place. Please keep looking into this, because if we're wrong, we want to know that. Like, if we've just totally missed this super duper obvious thing, like, guys, it's right there in front of you. Dark energy. It's been there. If it's that fucking simple, man, I mean, show it to us, please, because we're going to change our minds, and we're going to get to a place where we say, hey, you know what, Denny, you are right. But I hope, and this is always our challenge, I hope that if we can show you that by your criteria, this argument does not do the thing you say it does, that you'll change your mind too and say, you know what, guys, you're right. So keep hanging out with us, Denny. I think the call was really good, and I think you are in a good place, and hopefully, we can convert more people to Satan and atheism. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm not supposed to say that live. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. I do legally have to do this. I will be jailed, fined, imprisoned, beaten by somebody if I don't give a massive, huge, incredible shout out to the amazing crew that put this show together every week. We have video operators, audio operators, note takers, call screeners, chat moderators. We've got people providing snacks here at the Free Thought Library, and I think I have been told that Vern does the plumbing. So if you have any problems, give him a call. But no, seriously, we have an amazing crew, and we are always so thankful because we just get to come up here and sit and have fun and all that good stuff. So we are going to go to Mississippi because we are going to talk to Hannah. She, her, wants to talk about the deontological case for being pro-life. Well, this sounds fun. Hey, Hannah, you were talking with Secular Rarity and Holy Koolaid. What you got?
Hey, so basically I wanted to give a reason why I think the moral position is to basically have a pro-life view on the abortion debate. Okay. But basically I'd like to present that case, yeah.
Sure, go ahead. So, I don't agree with deontology in general, just so you know, so it's going to be a tough slog. I'm much more on the utilitarian consequentialism side, but go ahead.
Well, so basically my argument is that I take from Kant this idea like morality should be universal, and so I think because abortion, unless it's to save the life of the mother, is wrong because it's basically saying that there's an exception to the otherwise universal principle of do not kill innocent people. And so if it's to save the life of the mother, I think there's an exception to be made there because the principle is do not kill innocent people. And if the fetus is a threat to the life of the mother, then I think that's a case of self-defense. But if it's not a threat to the mother, I would just say it's a universal categorical imperative to not kill the innocent. Even if you can say it's not an actual individual for the mother, it's still protected under that universal categorical imperative, if that makes sense.
Can I
think I'm following.
Can I ask you a quick question? What was your name again?
Hannah.
Hannah? Okay.
Hannah?
Hannah, would you say that if I were to kidnap you and I were to take you into a laboratory and I have someone there in my laboratory who they don't have working kidneys, but you do, and I found a way to hook your bodies up to each other and you are keeping this person alive and it is against your will and you don't want to, and you want to have your freedom, but I say, look, for the next 9 months, you are forced to carry this person everywhere you go with you, attached to their body. And if this cord is separated between you and them, they will die. Is it your obligation to give up your autonomy as a human being to be forced to have a parasite that you're keeping alive, even if it is a conscious, sentient human being, regardless of that person's story? Is it your duty as a human being to do that?
Well, so basically my argument is that I take from Kant this idea like morality should be universal, and so I think because abortion, unless it's to save the life of the mother, is wrong because it's basically saying that there's an exception to the otherwise universal principle of do not kill innocent people. And so if it's to save the life of the mother, I think there's an exception to be made there because the principle is do not kill innocent people. And if the fetus is a threat to the life of the mother, then I think that's a case of self-defense. But if it's not a threat to the mother, then I think that's a case of self-defense. Well, yeah, I mean, based on the categorical imperative of like my principle is, I don't think it's ever justified to kill or.
No. You're misunderstanding me.
Yeah, you're changing.
Is it? Would you consider it murder if I kidnapped you, hooked you up to someone, and you are their life support machine, and you say, no, I deserve bodily autonomy. I'm not responsible to keep anyone else alive if I don't want to. Like, they cannot use me parasitically as a leech hosting off of my body. Do you have a right?
I would consider that murder.
You would consider that murder.
I don't think there's a right. Yeah.
You would say that that's murder?
So then you are arguing for a society where all of us should be forced to give up kidneys.
Yeah.
Should be forced to have our kidneys harvested in order to keep other people alive. Should be forced to...
Well, it depends on whether you're alive or dead, because if you're alive, you have a right to your kidneys. But if you're dead, there's a case to be made that you're a dead corpse, that other people can do it. But if you're alive...
We can go down that route. There's a reason that we care about
saying,
people's last wishes, but it doesn't matter
Do you or do you not, as a person, have a right to bodily autonomy and to not be forced to have your body be used against your will to keep someone else alive, even if it's keeping them alive? Do you have an obligation, or do you have bodily autonomy to be free and not be a host to a parasite?
I would say you have an obligation to prevent the death of another person.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah, you're changing it. Hannah, this is very, very specific. And I would argue that it... Okay, so hang on,
in this
Hannah,
specific case...
follow this. Follow what he's saying.
In this specific case, would you say that it is my moral obligation to give up my own bodily autonomy in order to keep someone else alive?
I thought I already said yes.
Okay, so you don't think bodily autonomy is important. You do not, in fact, agree with some of the main things that Kant gave a shit about. Like, you are using this ideology that 100% goes against this that you're talking about.
To lay that out, Kant, his entire ontological reasoning was that you have these rules, these categorical imperatives that have to apply in all cases. You can't just say, well, you know, I want this to be a rule in this case, but not this case. Right. I think stealing should be wrong for everyone. It should be universal. It should be absolute. But now we're basically saying, like, we're arguing from a standpoint of bodily autonomy is important. You should be able to be free and to not have to be forced to be a host to anyone. And I guess at least I respect the fact that you have the consistency to stick with it. But I think that you're pushing yourself into a very, very indefensible position. And it's a very fringe position that you're holding in order to try to justify the pro-life stance.
And I honestly think based on the reasons why you are getting to the pro-life thing, the reasons why you have a problem with killing an innocent person, that justification will go against the justification here. Because it is bodily autonomy that you care about. In this case of pregnancy, you just are only paying attention to bodily autonomy on one side of it. You're calling it the preservation of life, but the only reason that matters is because of the fact that that life has a right to do what the fuck it wants, which is to keep living. So smuggled into this concept is the very thing that you are then going against later, and again, just not even following the universality aspect of this. So it's very interesting.
Universal principles of preservation of life. That's what I'm saying.
Why do you preserve life? Why do you preserve life, Hannah? Why should we preserve life? What's the importance there?
Could I just formulate it just for a little bit more?
Answer the question, and then you can go. Why would we preserve life? What is the importance for that?
Well, the preservation of life is because it's a universal imperative to respect the freedom of people. But could I explain the logical hierarchy of this imperative? Because the specific formulation is really important.
It's okay, we'll get back to it. What you just said was autonomy, but that's okay. Go ahead. Say your thing.
So I would say the specific formulation of the imperative is this. There's a universal categorical imperative to not prevent allow other people to live. And part of this categorical imperative is that this is because people have universal autonomy. And if somebody's autonomy conflicts with another person's life, then that person's autonomy should be sacrificed, because life is a higher principle than autonomy. So if, for example, my autonomy would be to, let's say I could get away with stealing or killing you, well, that I don't have the right to do that, because you're, and then yourself. And similarly, I would argue if in the case of abortion, if it's to save the life of the mother, I think there's an exception to be made there. But if it's not to save the life,
that also is problematic.
I would say that the life of the fetus matters more than the autonomy of the mother.
Yeah, I know, but the problem with saying stuff like that, Hannah, is the fact that it contradicts every other aspect of your argument. I understand that you think that is better, right? I understand that what you're saying is like, hey, in this instance, I don't know that I like this universal application of this moral code, but that kind of right there is why there's an issue with it, for me at least, right? But again, you said it multiple times. And I think this is just something everybody should do on these types of things. If you ever have one of these kinds of conversations and it's recorded, wait a week and then go back and watch it, because the very thing that I said you were going to say, Hannah, you said, nuh-uh, I ain't going to say that. And then I said, oh, yeah, my bad. I could be wrong. I was wrong earlier today. Thomas corrected me. Go ahead, Hannah. Tell me. And then you said the thing I said you were going to say, which is fine. That's okay. Autonomy is a very important principle. It is something that moral philosophers have talked about the entire time we have had moral philosophy. But what we're trying to point out... Go ahead.
Also, this notion that, and I think Hannah, and I could be wrong, but it feels like Hannah thinks that their position is internally consistent because it's saying life always supersedes autonomy. But that's just not the world we live in. If we're invaded by a foreign country and they're about to take away our autonomies and our freedom of speech and freedom to live and thrive and prosper, you better believe everyone in here is going to run for the guns and fight back and take other people's lives to defend your freedom. Like it's just not a universal principle that applies. A lot of, and I know some people wouldn't necessarily agree with this, but a lot of people would argue in favor of using violent force, even ending someone's life, in order to protect yourself from someone who's attacking you or mugging you, even if they're not necessarily going to kill you. You don't know, but you're protecting your freedom. You're protecting yourself from getting kidnapped. And taken off somewhere and maybe abused in some horrific way. And you're protecting yourself through violent force, sometimes ending someone's life. Right. And I think that when we apply that value structure of autonomy and freedom and stuff is important, obviously I can't just go out and be like, no, I want to get away with and do whatever I want.
Right.
And so I'm just going to, kill Elliot and take his PlayStation.
Well.
Yes, there are rules in place, but it's not because there's this universal principle.
Right.
And the idea that somehow an embryo or a fetus is a fully functioning human, this again, it's equivocation. It's no, I will not grant you that when it doesn't have the neural pathways formed yet in order to have consciousness, in order to even feel pain yet. And you're calling this a human, you're assuming sentience and sapience, and you're now restricting a mother's choice and freedoms and prospects, and you're forcing her to carry it to terms regardless of whether it was incest or rape or anything else, which I don't think should matter in this case. To me, it's to be like, oh, and that potential human has more value than someone with a fully formed brain and feelings and emotions and hopes and dreams who may very well want to have other kids in the future, but now's just not the time. And we're going to make those judgment calls and decisions just in order to try to be ontologically consistent, which even then it's not.
And again, I have a problem with deontology to begin with, Hannah. But yeah, give us some thoughts. I know we've shouted a lot at you.
But I would just say I never claimed that the fetus is fully human. I mean, I would say they have a human in a sense that they're literally of the species Homo sapiens. But
in a way, Hannah, you did. In a way, you did.
Can I finish my statement? Just going to finish my statement.
I'll let you finish, but I want to get back to that point because I'm not going to let you sneak that in.
The point is that I don't think you have to cop to this being like the fetus has this metaphysical essence of a human being. I do think that's the case, but you don't even have to cop there. The only claim I made was that because the categorical imperative is don't let an innocent life die, which I think is a valid categorical imperative, that would include prohibiting abortion unless it's to save the life of the mother, and only because then it's a conflict between one life and another. But that's a very specific formulation. It doesn't have to go to any metaphysics about whether the fetus is a human being. All it says is that it's a categorical imperative to not let innocent life die.
Okay, now listen to Thomas's response.
That right there is where you did exactly what I said you did. When you're arguing that you never made the claim or the statement that this baby was a fully formed human, and then went on in the very next sentence to say, I'm just arguing from a deontological perspective that we should never take the life of a human, right? Or of an innocent human. Mm-hmm. You right there in back-to-back statements said, I'm not saying it's a human, but I am saying it's a human because we shouldn't take human life, and I'm saying we shouldn't take the life of an unborn fetus. So you are doing exactly what I said. This entire case falls apart if you're not assuming personhood.
Yes.
If you're assuming that this isn't a person and then you're arguing for the rights of people, then there is no argument. Right. So you can't say, well, I'm not really doing that to try to like hide away from that and then do exactly that to make the case for your argument. That's why I cut you off. That's why I said, fuck no, this doesn't fly. I caught it. I saw exactly what you're doing, and I'm going to call you out on that.
I didn't say humans. I said innocent life.
Right, but you're equivocating on the term there.
But what kind of innocent life?
Right, because you don't
life?
Feel the same way if a schnauzer is mauling a 3-year-old. You don't feel the same way about bacteria.
If I step on an ant and it's innocent life, you don't care.
Come on. I mean, we all know that's what you're saying, Hannah.
But in any event, here's
No. There is no any other event. We gonna stop right here for just 2 fucking seconds so that we can all go, hey, right, Hannah? And then you'll go, yeah, guys. And then we'll go, hey, awesome. That's so cool. You're a great person for doing that, Hannah. And we'll all move on happily to any other event you want. So let's one more time.
And if you've got another argument, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't think we have time for it right now because we've got other callers to get to. But this will be the point where you say, you know what? Yeah, you're right. It's not ontologically consistent. There was an equivocation going on there. I thank you guys for calling it out. And then just come up with a better argument and come back next week. But like this shifting is
let's one more time. So we're gonna just rewind just a second. We're gonna say that whole little thing where Thomas is like, hey, but there it is, and you're like, no, it isn't, and then we all get to that place where we go, but that's kind of what you're doing, right, Hannah?
If you're asking me, do I think this imperative? Do I think the fetus is a human life? Yes. I do think that.
Awesome. And that is a great place for us to put it pause right there, and you give us a call back in the future, and we will help build this argument to its absolute most strongest steelman position. I'll tell you this, though,
sure as hell ain't there yet.
Definitely. And I'll tell you this, I think even in that strongest, most charitable, most steelmaned position, this argument will always fall flat. Always. So, but at least we can help make it a little bit better. So thank you so much, Hannah. We are just going to drop you abruptly because I am a rude asshole with no moral foundation.
Oh, the shame.
I know, it's terrible. I have this hole in my heart. Actually, it's a little bit lower. This hole is somewhere below my ribs.
Yeah, what's up with they got rid of the thing that said pizza time?
I know. I'm feeling a grumbling.
I'm starting to think that everybody ate it before we got
so. They are a bunch of atheists and
well, but we've got a couple callers. We'll try to get to them as fast as we can.
We can get through them. But hang on real quick because I think we had a couple of awesome super chats. We've got $1.99 from Godwin saying, thanks for Holy Koolaid and not making SR do anything weird. Well,
don't give me ideas.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say, because I think if I say any more, we will get taken off the air. But did you know that Sundays, you can come down to the Free Thought Library for a weekly in-person watch party where weird things may happen. We don't know. We got $5 from...
Should I be worried?
Yeah. It depends on whether or not there's pizza in a few minutes, Greg. We've got $5 from Lauren Misha Sadai saying, I'm 100% certain that 50% of the time, that 20% of black swans are 10% of the 5% of swans that can't be intelligent 2% of the time at 1%. So if you didn't follow all that math, that's on you.
I think I'm about 30% lost right now.
It's pretty good. And then we have $5 from Nika, a friend of mine.
A member for 6 months.
A member for 6 months, yeah. All of you should be ashamed because Nika is, in fact, outshining you right now. And just taking $5 to say, remember the Secularizing U.S. fundraiser on Monday, March 31st. Please donate. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the crap out of you, Nika. And yeah, guys, come hang out with us. I know those links are being thrown out there by our wonderful chat moderators because they are better than me. Let's go to New York. We've got Omega Weapon. Him wants to run something by us that will disprove most concepts of a god. Ooh. Well, hey, what you got for us, Omega Weapon?
Hey guys, nice to talk to you. Nice to be on. Happy Atheist Day, everyone.
Hey.
Cheers.
Yeah, I've been the fan of AXP and, a lot of atheist content for a while. And one thing that drives me crazy is how most people define God. And I think just using some basic logic and cosmology, I can pretty much falsify most general concepts people have.
All right.
First of all,
okay, but we won't play softball. So even if we're on the same side, we'll be fair and rip your argument to shreds too if we see holes.
Yeah, if there's problems, please, I'd be happy to listen.
Yeah. Go ahead for us.
Well, first of all, God is usually defined, I'm not saying in all cases, that's a big caveat here, as both space-time independent and the creator of it. Now, to me, that's just logically impossible. Because first of all, to even say something exists, quote unquote, means it has location in space-time, or you're talking about space-time itself. Secondly, creation and causation requires space-time in order to happen in the first place and even be coherent. Creation is an act, and acts require time. So to say a God can, quote-unquote, exist absent space-time and be the creator of the universe is just completely impossible.
Okay, so let me jump in just for a second, Omega, because I mean, largely, obviously, again, there's a reason that I'm here. So largely, I'm on the same side with you. I could very much, especially from like an idealism kind of framework, right? I think a lot of those people would probably push back on the idea that existence by definition is necessarily space-time, like that has to be a part of it, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think there is good reason for us to get to that definition for what we mean by existence, but I do already see at least one place that could be pushed back, which is that general concept of idealism basically being that, like, the immaterial and thoughts are what actually generates the tangible world around us. And so in that construction, if somebody's coming at it from that perspective, they could already kind of push away this argument, because what they would just say, oh, well, I don't think existence requires space-time, right? And so then again, I'm just saying, like, I'm with you here, Omega. I'm on your side. Like, I think the definition you're using makes a lot of sense, but for the idealist, you would just have to shift some things a little bit before they would agree to that, I think. Does that make sense?
Well, then I would say, how else would you identify an extant thing without using location?
Say again?
Time?
How would you identify something without you?
Well, then I would ask them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'm not an idealist, and I don't think idealism makes a lot of sense. But I would imagine. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, please.
To play the devil's advocate, like I could imagine a scenario where our universe operates by some certain laws of time and space, but we could be in some sort of multiverse. Type
Everything
of
else
structure,
doesn't. Sure.
And God would be outside of that. I can also picture a scenario where, like, if we're all living in a simulation like the Matrix and God is the programmer, then he would be outside of our time. So I could see a construct like that where if you're thinking of God kind of within a particular box, maybe it wouldn't work. But if you're like, okay, yeah, he started the simulation, he started the time and space that's involved, and he's pulling the strings as the architect, as the Matrix runner, I could see a world like that where it's plausible.
But because I totally agree with you on all of that, but I would say, Omega, that if you are in conversation with a believer and they accept the definition of existence as you've laid it out and then describe their God in that capacity, buddy boy, that's solid as all fuck right there. I mean, you've got them 100% because they've agreed with you that by definition, existence has to have this criteria, and their God literally fails on every single one of them. I mean, yeah, that's...
I just think that they'll shift the goalpost the second you make that argument.
Oh, yeah, possible.
But maybe I'm just a cynic who's been doing
yeah,
this too long.
it's happened to me a lot.
No, but I think,
Or saying that,
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Well, we're saying that acts don't actually require time, like in what in regards to what you said, Holy Koolaid. Like if God is a programmer outside somewhere, in order to act, that it would still be in some kind of space-time construct, not necessarily ours.
Sure, there would still need to be
like even multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, by definition, if God is going to cause something, there has to be cause and effect.
Right.
And that is kind of the arrow of time,
it's a bit
put
weird.
differently. So yes, I agree with you, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be within our experience of time and space.
But broadly speaking, though, Omega, again, I think both Thomas and I mean, we're getting really nitpicky about, some stuff here because, I think that is actually a construction that I myself have kind of, come to in one form or fashion. And I do think is really solid. Like, hey, wait, if this is what you mean when you say to your friend, my home exists, in my fridge exists a ham and cheese sandwich, like you have very specific criteria, and that tends to relate to the physical, tangible material. Nobody would accept, a slice of cheese pizza, that is non-corporeal, has no location in space, has no time and all. Like, no, of course not, But I think broadly speaking, that does take out a lot of constructions of God. So, but we are gonna drop you very abruptly because
one more.
I have the ability to do so. So thank you so much, Omega.
This other person's been waiting a little while,
That's right.
I really don't want them to get missed.
Yeah, we are not gonna let you go without speaking to you. We are gonna talk to Antwion out in North Carolina, no pronouns, talking about the fear of hell and how to get over it. Well, Antwion, you are calling the right place. What is up?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Of course you hear me already. All right. So I had a primary, major question that I've always wanted to deal with. And first of all, I am a huge fan of the show. All right. So I guess my thing is I always wanted to figure out trying to let go of my fear. Fully let go of this. I've always had an issue with hell. Being a deconstructing Christian. What methods did you guys use? Because I never really hear you guys talk about how you guys got over your fear.
Yeah. I'll tell you to start off, and then I'll just say this one thing, and I'll let Thomas talk about his experience and stuff. But, one thing that has been undeniably one of the most helpful things for me, not specifically with this route, but with a lot of things in my life, is I found my secular therapist through the Secular Therapy Project, which is this amazing nonprofit organization, the affiliate to Recovering from Religion, which is another amazing nonprofit organization. And I will absolutely, every single day of my life, will tell people how great those two organizations are. So that in and of itself is a phenomenal jumping off point. Recovering from Religion, secular therapy project. I promise you, you type that shit in anywhere, you are going to find stuff. And I bet you there is an in-person peer support group somewhere close to you too. But Thomas, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, please, Antwon, go ahead.
Oh no, what I was going to say. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, because I live here in Charlotte, and they have the Charlotte Agnostic Atheist group, and I rarely get a chance to hang out with them because they usually work on Sundays, and they meet on Sunday mornings. But so a lot of the information that I've obtained from my deconstruction would be some of the stuff I learned from both Matt Dillahunty. I'm a black atheist, so we got to give him, Matt Dillahunty, and the name is M. Dilla. But I know one thing I dealt with was, of course, hearing, how people, let go. They did this, they did that. Of course, my method was I wanted to be a preacher, and that didn't really pan out too well once I actually read the Bible cover to cover. What the hell? I'm pretty sure that happens to most people. They read it, get to the Old Testament, they don't know how the hell they get to the New Testament and finish and keep going. But it's just that once I learned that hell being a New Testament creation, that kind of stopped me there on my tracks there. And then, of course, being a black man and then slavery, that's another issue right there.
Yeah. Could see why.
So of course I wanted to go. Yeah, of course I wanted to go through different methods to find out. Hey, how did these people let go? They let go. This man let go. That man let go. But everybody has a different method. So right. So of course you said the RFR and the secular therapist.
Secular Therapy Project. Both of those are great resources. But yeah, Thomas, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I would love to share just a couple things that helped me, Antwon, if you've got a minute.
I do.
The first is realizing just how many things there are in our life that are difficult to explain that people have attributed falsely to demons. That has helped me tremendously. So when I was in college, I was pulling a lot of all-nighters. I had horrible sleep patterns because I was just studying nonstop. And one time I woke up in the middle of the night and I was just paralyzed. I was frozen in my bed and I was awake, but I couldn't move and my muscles were locked down. And I felt just this fear, this crippling fear, like I was being possessed by a demon, and there was this pressure on my chest and it was darkness, and I was like, this has to be a demon. And at the time I was Christian. I was religious, and I was praying and crying out to Jesus. I was like, Jesus, save me. And nothing's happening. It's not changing anything. And then after about a minute, it just kind of went away on its own. And I was like, what the hell was that? And then it happened again. And this wasn't happening at points in my life when I was sinning and dabbling in the occult and playing with Ouija boards or anything. I was doing as much Christian stuff as you possibly could be. And I had just had a point in my life where there was a deep revival and I was on fire for God. If any time in my life I should have been under God's protection, it was that moment. And I had this experience happen again.
Yeah.
It happened again as I was literally spending the night in this prayer and worship center. And I'm laying there on the couch. I wake up and I look up and I see this cross on the wall and my eyes are fixated on it. I'm like, Jesus, help me. And it didn't work. And then I found out later I started learning about sleep paralysis. Is this something you're familiar with, Antwon?
Yeah, yes, very much.
Yeah, so I discovered sleep paralysis, which for any of our viewers who aren't familiar, it's when you go to sleep, your body naturally freezes your muscles so that you don't thrash in the night or roll out of bed and hurt yourself. It causes your muscles to freeze. Sometimes it goes wrong and people sleepwalk. Other times it goes wrong and you wake up, but only part of your brain is awake. So the emotional core of your brain is awake and alert, but the prefrontal cortex that's rational and reasoning, it's not quite there yet. And your muscles are frozen because GABA and glycine have been sent to them to keep them frozen. You're trying to move your muscles, and so there's this mismatch in terms of your sense of proprioception, where your body is in space. It's off. It's not matching up with where your muscles actually are. And so you sometimes feel a sense of levitating off the bed or pressure on your chest. You have these hypnagogic hallucinations. and you start to see things in the room or hear things in the room. And it's things like this that throughout history have been misattributed to a hag, a vampire, a demon, some sort of witch or something. And it's when you go back to the Bible, there's other very natural things like epilepsy that they literally attribute to demons. Mm-hmm. And we know exactly what's happening in the brain. We know that there's just this misfiring of electrical activity in the brain that we can measure. We can even stimulate and cause. We can prevent with epileptic drugs from happening. And yet people in the Bible, it literally says they brought the epileptic to Jesus and he fell on the ground and had a seizure and was foaming at the mouth and like rolling around. We know what this is. And they're like, and they said the demon periodically seizes the boy and Jesus cast the demon out of him and he was at peace again. It's like, no, he probably just stopped having a seizure because most seizures don't last for more than a minute. And so if Jesus didn't know what a seizure was because he's some cult leader and the Bible didn't know how to attribute, how to understand these different things, now there's so many other stuff. I have a whole series on my channel right now that I'm doing on demon possession, exposing things that people mistake for possession and for demons and for exorcisms. And I'm showing that these are actually very normal, natural things that we experience. And so it might be something. What?
No, and I was going to say, and that's a good point that you bring up, because how people would actually use the Bible to try to prove that there was a demon, other demon possessing you. Uh-huh. And one way I usually retort with that is that once again, the Bible is just a book of claims. Little small short and simple about me. I'm a student pilot. Pilot. I need a God in the plane with me. Okay. So in pilots, we have a POH. A POH is the handbook that we use to operate the aircraft. Even that is still a book of claims. You still have to go out there and demonstrate that the plane is going to do exactly what the POH says. Well, I want the Bible to do the same thing. If the Bible says that God will reveal himself to those that call upon him, there's 80 plus scriptures in the Bible that show that God revealed himself. Okay, cool. Then God, I need you to reveal yourself. But if you're not going to do that, he's come up with a way that I know is you. Make the hood of my car stop flopping and talking to me, and my dog start talking to me or something like that. But no, crickets.
Right. And I'll say this to get back to the question about the fear of hell and how to get over it. I'll put this out there for people because I always love to be transparent and stuff. I was sitting over here as Thomas was talking and I was feeling like such a dick because I couldn't remember what the term exposure therapy was. So I'm like trying to type this and try to remember the term, but all I could type was like slow therapy getting more intense over time? ? And it was like, well, you're a dipshit, but you might be trying to get to exposure therapy. So I'm sure you're probably a little bit familiar with it, and I'll say,
I don't know.
Okay, well, so it's a really cool concept. It's basically like, especially if people have, phobias or whatever, like, so somebody's hardcore super afraid of snakes, can't be around snakes, can't think about snakes. So the first thing we do is we put you all the way on the other side of a super large gymnasium with a snake in a locked cage and a wrangler all the way on the other side. And all you do is walk into the room and just stand there for 5 minutes, knowing that the snake is over there. Then the next time you do it, you get a little bit closer, so on and so forth. So you're doing it in this place where you are exposing yourself to these things that have these very traumatic experiences for you, right? That have given you these very intense feelings. Now,
how would you do that with hell, though?
Well, so hang on.
Play around with the Ouija board.
Just play around with the right. Well, so hang on. I'm getting there, okay? I'm making a connection, but I do just want to remind everybody out there, I am in no way, shape, or form a licensed therapist. I have no expertise or anything. That's why I said secular therapy project first. See, I was thinking. But
this is not medical advice.
This is not medical advice. No, it is not legal or financial advice. But I have.
You guys are professionals. I'm not. Here's my call.
I have found that humor, that silliness, right, can be one of the most powerful tools that we have as people to deal with very difficult subjects. And I have found that you can do a kind of exposure therapy type of thing with this, where, the first time you make a joke about God striking you down with a lightning bolt, you cringe a little, you kind of look around and you're like, okay, wait a second. It's 5, 4, okay, whew. Yeah, he's good. Now I just do that shit all the time, Antwon. I don't give a fuck, God. Come on, hit us. Like, we got a building and everything. Nothing. It means nothing to me anymore because I exposed myself in safe places just a little bit more and more every time. And again, that's something that if you find a secular therapist through the Secular Therapy Project, or you just call in to the volunteer chat line, these people that have been trained and are there 24/7 to talk with you, or if you show up to one of these in-person, peer support groups in your area, a lot of what you're gonna experience is some stuff like that, where you have these really difficult concepts that are just like, man, I can't even fucking think about that without breaking down and crying. Mm-hmm. You're going to be in a safe space where there are people there to support you, where you can just start to nibble away a little bit at that. And I can tell you from my experience and every other person I have ever heard that has been deconstructing and have had these traumatic things still sticking with them, it definitely isn't a wake up tomorrow and it's all gone. It's a little bit by bit. And slowly, as you kind of go down that route, again, I'm telling you, Antwon, before too long, you'll be raising a middle finger up to the heavens with all of us. So,
and also, I think as you go through this, I would say there are too many people who they go to school or they go to university and then they stop and they're like, I'm done. My education's over. I'm now an educated person. It's like, no. It's just getting started. And if you take the time, let's say you really want to get over this fear and you want to understand, you want to know not just, hey, I'm comfortable with it, but I don't know, I could be wrong. You really want to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Christian faith is bullshit. Go out and learn more, study more, and like go to actual text critical scholars like Bart Ehrman or like Dan McClellan, Data Over Dogma, and like look at their stuff. Francesca Stravakopoulou's book, God and Anatomy, literally looks at all of the archaeological finds and the different descriptions of the other pantheons within the area of the world that the Bible sprang up out of. And it says, look, these came before. These gods are specifically mentioned in the Bible. This is how it evolved. It was pantheistic, and then it was like polytheistic, and then it was like monolatristic, and then eventually you get to monotheism. But there's all of these different steps that we can see how this religion evolved, how it changed over time, how it used to be different from how it is today, how it's literally we have we can see changes in the Bible between our oldest texts and the ones that we have today. And if that doesn't tell you that this is man-made, when you really, really, really dive deep into the history of it, and not by some Christian apologetic source or answers in Genesis, but by actual trained scholars, you look at stuff like that, and it's very, very hard to continue believing that this is the perfect, flawless work of God.
And it all just starts to become a lot sillier. It all gets a lot sillier, man.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully we answered something, Antwon. But here's the good news. If we fucking didn't, you can just call right back on in, and because we're here a lot. We're here a lot. So we appreciate you, man.
On Sundays, right?
That's right. Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central for this, and 1 p.m. Central for the awesome show Talk Heathen. And then
show will go on.
Yeah, if you're just hanging out on a Friday at 7 p.m. Central, we also got a fucking show then called Truth Wanted. So you've got ample opportunity. And I've been told, I don't know, but I've been told that there is a mythical place called a Discord, an atheist community of Discord that one can find and go speak with people 24/7 because there are motherfuckers in there that just never sleep, apparently. So, but anyway, thank you so much, Anton. We really, really appreciate you. And I'm just going to rudely drop you. And hopefully I don't cut you off or anything too bad. But hopefully you won't hate us. But hey, we've got some people giving us some money. So I got to say something about that. We got David Haxer giving us 5 Atheist Experience memberships. So if you got one of those memberships, just go throw a bunch of emojis in the chat and stuff. I think my face is one of them, so just spam my face in the chat. That sounds very weird. It sounds gross and uncomfortable, but just do it. I don't know. You can now. We've also got $5 Canadian from David Haxer again saying, my significant other wants to know how to get sleep paralysis to apply to my snoring muscles. That would be very interesting. I don't know if that's possible, but I'll tell you, we've got a team working on it right now.
I think there are methods to help with snoring.
Yeah.
But this isn't a medical advice.
Yeah. We do not have, right.
Dr. Ben is not on
That's
today.
true. That's true. Yeah. So, and I feel confident he will yell at me about, I'm sure I've said something that was medically incorrect today. It's
That's
commonplace.
sleep paralysis. It wasn't GABA and glycine. It was this and this.
Right. You fucking idiot. What's wrong with you? No, we have some wonderful people that are out there that are waiting for us to get done, and we are excited to get some pizza in us because I am fucking hungry. But before we do that, Thomas, where in the world can people find you?
Well, right now in the Free Thought Library.
Hey, right here in Austin.
I have a show called Holy Koolaid where you can go and watch all these videos. I got stuff on sleep paralysis. I did a video on that. I got videos on demon possession and debunking that stuff. I've got videos on, I mentioned in the last show, Pascal's Wager.
Yeah.
You name it. Bible history.
All
this stuff about, where did this actually come from? Where did these belief systems come from? What's the latest literature? Go check it out.
Okay, well, you guys heard it. Holy Koolaid, real simple. And then remember, not tomorrow, not Monday tomorrow, but March 31st, 5:30 p.m. Central, come hang out with us, Secularizing US, as we launch a brand new organization dedicated to helping you find your people. That is what we are here to do. But don't forget, folks, every single fucking Sunday, we are right here in the heart of Austin, Texas at the Free Thought Library, 4:30 p.m. Central Time. Hang out with us again, and I don't know, let's just go be sinners, man. Let's do it. It's Atheist Day. We got to do something.
Gluttony.
That's right. Gluttony, sloth, whatever. We're getting it. See you guys.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.